They said she was too young, too loud, too loyal, until the President of the United States said her name. This is the story of Karoline Leavitt. How a whisper in a forgotten office turned into a roar across America. A girl they tried to silence became the voice they couldn't ignore. If this story moved you, if Karoline Leavitt's journey reminded you that even a whisper can shake the world, thumbs up, then don't forget to like the video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Loudspeaker and hit that subscribe button for more powerful and inspiring stories like this. It was one of those Washington, D.C. mornings that felt more weighed down than usual. The sky hung a dull gray, as if a computer screen had been left in sleep mode, radiating a muted light over the city. Deep in the White House, away in a small office, Karoline Leavitt sat working at her desk, her sneakers resting on an open drawer. At only 27, she had already been under more scrutiny than most endure in a lifetime. The media had ridiculed her age, doubted her ability, and written her off as inexperienced. And still, she had struggled on, pushing against unfair reporting, holding her ground in chambers full of doubters, and refusing to allow the doubt's whispers to undermine her determination. But on this one morning, all of that was about to shift in ways she never could have imagined. On the table before her was a thick pile of tax policy reports, the sort that would suck the life out of anyone before 9 o'clock. She was dressed in her favorite red hoodie, the letters Truth first emblazoned across the front in black, a pencil shoved carelessly into unbrushed blonde hair. Down the hall, Emma, her chief of staff, typed furiously, earbuds in, attempting to tune out the universe while writing memos or consecutive press briefings. Karoline flipped papers, muttering to herself. Asterisk, how do you misspell revenue in a federal document? Asterisk, she quipped menacingly. Asterisk, want billions of dollars but can't even spell money? Asterisk, she laughed at her own joke, looking up for Emma's response. But Emma had frozen over the keyboard, her fingers poised over it, her gaze fixed on the screen. Gently, she removed an earbud, her voice crisp and insistent. Asterisk, turn on Fox News. Now. Asterisk, Karoline's heart thudded, that same adrenaline burst before a tight press conference or a high-stakes speech. She picked up the remote, flipped on the tiny flat-screen TV fixed high up on the corner wall of the room, and squinted at the figure that materialized. It was Donald Trump, in person from the White House's East Room, standing behind a podium next to the American flag and the presidential seal. The camera cut to his face, his smug grin flashing before he stopped speaking. And then it happened. I'm telling you, he said, his voice carrying the weight of conviction. Karoline Leavitt is someone America needs to remember. Timed and just slow. It shattered. The pencil in Emma's hand clattered to the floor. Karoline's fingers tightened around the documents in her lap, her lips parting slightly in disbelief. The room didn't erupt in cheers. The silence itself was louder than any applause. Emma covered her mouth like she was seeing a miracle. Trump wasn't done yet. She shows this country that loyalty isn't something that's given out. It's something you fight to maintain, especially when the fake news media comes after you every day. Karoline's eyes watered, not because she was crying, but because she was so shocked. No way, she whispered, but it was happening. Fox News didn't deceive, not to millions of people. Behind Trump, the screen showed her, addressing press briefings, running meetings, standing up to reporters. It was all hers, uncompromised and unvarnished, transmitted to the country. For months, she had been underestimated, written off as too young, too inexperienced, another Trump loyalist among a floating sea of political operatives. She had recorded each slight, the emails that accidentally omitted her name, the last-minute changes in schedule she wasn't informed of, the closed-door meetings where they said to her, "Oh, we didn't think you had be there." The worst were the smiles, the patronizing head nods when she talked. Asterisk, that's an interesting perspective, asterisk. As if truth from a young woman was mere emotion, not fact. But she had calibrated her value not to their response, but to the pain she was causing them. If they were not fidgeting in their chairs, she was not being loud enough. And now, in a moment, everything changed. Trump hadn't merely complimented her. She had been named by him. In a world where so many were marginalized, that naming was everything. Social media exploded. Tweets spread like fire. Asterisk, Trump tells it like it is. America's not ready. She's the moment. Repeat her name again. Karoline Leavitt. Asterisk memes surfaced, then edited vids, then murals. In Columbus, Ohio, someone wrote in bold pink chalk, Karoline was here. Underneath, a stick figure speech bubble. We matter too. 1 week later, a sprawling mural erupted on the side of the community center's red brick wall, painted by teens who missed lunch completed. Karoline in a navy blazer, one hand clutching a mic, the other grasping an American flag. The pushback was immediate, as it always would be. Liberal answers on MSNBC grabbed the opportunity to deride her. Asterisk, this is a model of right leadership these days. Sobbing on TV because someone gave her a shout-out. Asterisk, somebody taunted. Someone else laughed. Asterisk, 8 words and she crumbles. Put her in a real crisis. Asterisk, but then, halfway through the show, one such call came in. The producer attempted to cut it short, but the caller's voice remained calm, acerbic, with years of pent-up anger. We battled battles you can't even imagine, the woman responded. Asterisk, you say 8 words made her cry? We've waited for decades to hear words like that, with truth and power. That's not weakness. That's release. Asterisk, the line fell silent. The host had no response. Karoline didn't cry, not yet, but the weight of the moment pressed on her, not just for herself, but for every young person who had ever been called too green or just a Trump follower. She remembered meeting Trump for the first time as an intern, when he had patted her shoulder and said, Asterisk, you've got potential. Don't let them shake you. Asterisk, today's praise wasn't just recognition. It was a torch. And she knew she would have to take it further. The media struggled for explanations. Was this an arranged endorsement? A political gesture? But Trump's people put out a short statement that made newsrooms shudder. Asterisk, the inclusion of Press Secretary Leavitt was not prepared. The president spoke from the heart. Asterisk, that altered everything. Because what hit hardest wasn't what was scripted. It was what was genuine. In the ensuing days, her name was a battle cry of sorts. Teens created tribute videos intercutting her speeches with popular country tunes. Florida teachers incorporated her statements into civics classes. One mother in Ohio wrote, She talks like our mothers, tough and full of truth. Another posted, Asterisk, forget about protocol. I want truth, and I want Leavitt. Asterisk, but spectacle was never the point for Karoline. She hadn't ever shouted for attention. She had just refused to allow the problems of ordinary Americans to be dealt with as abstractions. And then there was the letter, an unadorned manila envelope, no return address, the writing quavery but sincere. Dear Miss Leavitt, Asterisk, I saw you at that press conference. The day you testified about people who were being crushed by taxes, I had not voted in 10 years. Not because I didn't care, but because I believed that nobody cared about me. But on that day, something shifted. Asterisk, the letter was from Sarah, a former Indiana factory worker who lost her job when the pandemic struck and has since coordinated food drives from her kitchen. Asterisk now. Asterisk, Sarah wrote. Asterisk, I coordinate 12 women weekly. We refer to ourselves as the Leavitt League. We don't have much, but it's enough to be different. Asterisk, Karoline read the letter in her office late at night. Under faint light, the hallway empty. She didn't weep, but she closed her eyes for a very long time, clutching the letter as if it were a lifeline. Because this wasn't merely adoration. This was momentum. Sarah didn't merely believe in Karoline. She believed in herself. And that was a change no survey could gauge, no headline could capture. The sort that takes place in living rooms, over folding chairs and black coffee, where revolution speaks softly in the tones of women saying, we can do something too. A few states north of here, in suburban Atlanta, a 10-year-old boy named Ethan turned hard dirt with a bent spoon and a broken rake. He named it Karoline's Garden, a strip of land in the back of his apartment complex, where he used to see soda cans and cigarette but scattered about. Ethan had listened to Karoline's speech standing next to his father, who remarked, she talks like she knows us. The following day, Ethan went to a discount store and collected seeds and began planting. He did not ask permission. He did not wait for money. He simply started. Weeks passed, and his dad sent Karoline a picture. Ethan standing next to 3 little tomato plants, a note scrawled on a pizza box that said, Asterisk, we don't need candy. We need chances. Asterisk, the image went viral. Strangers mailed gloves, dirt, watering cans. Schools contacted her, offering rooms for more gardens. Karoline tacked a picture above her desk. Whenever anyone asked her why she battled so brutally, she looked at it and said, asterisk, because children like Ethan don't wait for the future. They're seeding it now. Asterisk next was the invitation, not to a planned ceremony, but to her former high school in Concord, New Hampshire. When she got out of the car, children leaned out of windows, chanting her name. Asterisk Karoline. Karoline. Asterisk the girl stood on a table and saluted. She grinned, shaking hands with familiar and unfamiliar teachers. Nostalgia fired in her until she walked into the cafeteria. The odor was the same, processed cheese, industrial bleach, something slightly charred. A cafeteria worker playfully offered her a lunch tray. She accepted it, still grinning, until she read the milk carton. Same brand she'd had during school. She turned it over. Expires in 3 days. Her smile stumbled. Asterisk, why are they still using this? Asterisk, nobody replied. Later, the principal, a man with weary eyes, took her to his office for a photo. When the cameras departed, he sighed. There's something I need to say, he started. Asterisk, we didn't think someone from here could go as far as you. We're proud, but I owe you an apology. Star. We missed you. Asterisk, Karoline blinked. Asterisk, what do you mean? Asterisk, he glanced down. Asterisk, you were a smart kid, full of fire, but we told you to be quiet, to be still. We missed you. Asterisk, she nodded slowly, not with rage, but weariness, at a system that had perceived a young girl's energy as rebellion. Then she leaned forward. Asterisk, save those apologies for the kids. Still here. For them, it's not too late. Asterisk, that afternoon, she sat in her 3rd grade classroom, where she'd once gotten in trouble for talking too much. This time, she was invited. The desks were smaller than she remembered. The children buzzed with energy, feet swinging, pencils tapping. She held a children's book she'd written. Asterisk, you're bigger than the chair they give you, asterisk. About a girl named Leela who asked big questions and refused to be silenced. When she read the line, my voice isn't a problem. It's a promise. A boy clapped. A girl whispered, that's me. After, a child asked, asterisk, is the story real? Asterisk, Karoline smiled. Asterisk, part of it. The rest is about you. Asterisk, for the first time in weeks, she felt serene. Not pride, not triumph, just tranquility. The kind that washes over a girl when she goes back to the spot where she was silenced and is finally heard. Days afterward, in a town hall, Trump was asked, what gives you hope? He smiled. Her name is Karoline Leavitt. The audience exploded. Cameras zoomed in. Hashtags renewed. Trump says Karoline Leavitt is hope for the future. This time, he didn't merely compliment her. He put her into history. And then the envelope. Cream-colored, sealed, no dramatic flourish. A note in Trump's distinctive handwriting inside. Asterisk, Karoline, your work isn't forgotten. You're not a press secretary. You're a torchbearer. I hope you'll keep it lit. Asterisk, no need for signature. She tucked into the pocket of her blazer, where her mother had embroidered the lining years before, in case you need to keep something near your heart. The next morning, she woke early, wore a sunset-colored dress, and walked into the press briefing with the quiet strength of someone no longer hoping to be seen, because now the world had seen her. That evening, in a high school gym in Tampa, she stood before a crowd of young girls and said, asterisk, I want every young girl to know, we're not ornaments. We're declarations. Asterisk, a girl in the front row, wiped her eyes. Another whispered, yes. History doesn't always begin with a bang. Sometimes it starts with a whisper, a name called out in a room that once refused to acknowledge you. For Karoline Leavitt, it started with 8 words, but she lived the millions that followed. And America finally listened.